Chapter 24. Milo ducked behind a prop cactus that looked about as convincing as an Oscar nominee feigning surprise. His heart was pounding so loudly, he half expected a sound engineer to rush over with a boom mic and ask him to sign a release form. But Poppy seemed oblivious, and it didn't take long for them to arrive at their destination, the sociopath mansion. A warm glow appeared in one of the upper windows, the same mysterious light he had spied a few nights prior. Milo watched Poppy ascend the creaky steps, each one groaning like an underpaid grip, and then she slipped inside. He counted to 60, each second stretching like celluloid through a faulty projector, and then he followed. He took the stairs as quiet as possible, then eased the door open. He anticipated alarms to sound or to be confronted by Poppy, but he heard only silence. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He took out his phone for light and found himself in a long hallway with oak panelling on the walls. It wasn't a facade at all. It was a real house. "What the hell?" Milo whispered. A soft chime at the end of the narrow corridor drew his attention. He sprinted down just in time to see gleaming elevator doors slide shut. A series of illuminated numbers above the elevator marked its descent. 1, G, B1, B2. But that wasn't all. Milo watched the numbers continue their downward march like box office projections on a bad opening weekend. 1, G, B1, B2. Each floor taking him further from reality and closer to whatever fever dream he'd stumbled into. The elevator kept descending until it reached H3, which he desperately hoped stood for Hollywood and not horror, hysteria, or hey, you really shouldn't have come down here. Milo waited a moment, his finger hovering over the call button, but he didn't want to call it back too soon. He imagined Poppy exiting, the doors closing, her walking away. This was insanity. He should leave, call the cops, do anything other than follow his traitorous assistant into the bowels of a set piece that was apparently real enough to have a secret underground lair. And yet, Milo jabbed the button before he could talk himself out of it, his mind strobing through every elevator scene in film history. From The Shining to Devil, not a single one ended well. And yet, he was about to do it. He bounced on the balls of his feet, every creak and groan of the old house making him extra skittish. What exactly lay below? A secret society of failed directors? A hidden cache of revolutionary films? Or perhaps just an extremely elaborate tax evasion scheme? The doors finally slid open with a soft ding that still sounded obscenely loud in the silent hallway. Milo held his breath, half expecting Poppy to march out with a cadre of Hollywood elites dressed in sinister robes and carrying Oscar statuettes in the shape of sacrificial daggers. But no, the elevator was empty. So Milo stepped inside, finding himself face to face with a control panel that looked more suited to a missile silo. His finger hesitated over the array of buttons, then he selected H3. If he was going down this rabbit hole, he might as well make it all the way to Wonderland. What if H stood for hell? The descent was smooth and swift, belying the elevator's apparent antiquity. He pulled out his phone, thinking he should at least leave some sort of breadcrumb trail, but the screen read, "No service." Great. Milo shoved the useless device back into his pocket. He was about to stumble into the lair of a secret Hollywood cabal, and he couldn't even tweet about it. Hashtag Hollywood conspiracy, hashtag the golden path, hashtag oh God, what have I gotten myself into? Deceleration snapped him out of his self-pity, and he squared his shoulders, trying to summon some of the bravado that had propelled him into this elevator and mess to begin with. He was Milo Piven, damn it, aspiring director, dreamer and winner of the Mendocino International Film Festival. It was time to face whatever twisted third act awaited him. The elevator stopped, and then the doors slid open. He hesitated so long that the doors started to close. He blocked them with his foot, and peered out into a seemingly infinite corridor. The air smelled musty, like history and conspiracy had a baby and raised it on a steady diet of old film stock and buried secrets. The metal grating underfoot made each step sound like a Foley artist's interpretation of impending doom. How did Poppy manage those heels down here? "Hello?" Milo regretted calling out as soon as he did it. Silence. He stood frozen, suddenly aware of how utterly alone he was. He should take the elevator back up, pretend none of this had ever happened. Go direct Storm of Steel 3 through 7, maybe branch out into a spin-off series. Something safe, something normal. The kind of movies where the only mystery was how they kept getting greenlit. But then he heard the voices, muffled, indistinct, and undeniably human. Coming from somewhere to his left, his feet moved of their own accord, drawn toward the sound like extras to craft services. Voices grew louder by the step, though he still couldn't make out individual words. It was like eavesdropping on a conversation between Charlie Brown and his teacher. He rounded the corner to find a sliver of warm golden light spilling from an open door like the world's most ominous Best Cinematography nomination. Every nerve ending was screaming cut and run, but like every horror movie protagonist ever, he kept moving forward. Then Poppy's voice, stripped of its usual gum-snapping swagger. "Might as well come in, Milo. We've been expecting you." The words landed like a perfect third-act twist. Inevitable, yet somehow still surprising.